Always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
Is that going to
Business is booming in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital. Construction is almost everywhere, evidence of Ethiopia's impressive economic growth over the past decade. Gone are the days of famine and grinding poverty, the government story goes. This is Ethiopia 2015. To add to this rosy picture, Ethiopia's 90 million citizens are part of a healthy multi-party democracy that holds elections every 5 years, the government says. But not everyone agrees with this inspirational story of growth and democracy in what remains one of the poorest countries in Africa. The critics say Ethiopia is one of the most heavily censored countries in the world and has been accused of mercilessly stifling political opposition and civil liberties and of imprisoning those who don't toe the line. They say those who don't go to jail are intimidated into voting for the ruling party. What are the problems?
Well, this system is very repressive. I mean, this is relatively better working in Addis, but if you go to in rural areas, it's very challenging. You cannot distribute pamphlets, let alone going with a car, with the songs and everything. So
You seem to be having quite a bit of freedom here in Addis.
yeah, here in Addis, it's relatively better because you guys are here already.
So as Ethiopia goes to the polls, I've come to Addis Ababa to ask the Prime Minister about his party's record in office. I've also come to put some of your questions to him as well. If you had a chance to speak to the Ethiopian Prime Minister, what would you ask him?
Why are you guys lying to us, the Ethiopian young people? Why are you guys lying to us? Mainly about job creation. This is the main question I've got to him.
And I'm going to try to get some of the answers as Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn talks to Al Jazeera. Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed for seeing us. We've been contacted by many Ethiopians who've given us more than 2,000 questions that they wanted us to put to you, and clearly we don't have time for that number. But among them, what seemed to really come through was a concern about the state of multi-party democracy in Ethiopia today. One question was, Prime Minister, do you think your government is democratic? I mean, is that something that you can answer for our viewers?
Yes, of course. My government is democratic because democracy is building an institution and democratic culture. But the level of democratic discourse can differ from country to country and from democratic process that country has gone through.
Because of course many disagree with you, including the leaders of the Blue Party, for instance. We've spoken to them and they've said that the democratic environment is completely skewed against them. They say that many of their candidates have been banned from taking part in the election. They say that this isn't a level playing field at all.
No, that's not true. I mean, why don't you ask the electoral board? The Blue Party, they have labeled all their candidates, possible candidates they want to label, and they are, campaigning. They are in the debate, in the televised debate. They are there in all the processes of the election, and therefore, I think when you see that people are not along with you and we are not supporting you, there are always complaints that come out. But anyway, for us, the Blue Party is also in the process, but we have reservations on the Blue Party in the way they, campaign, in the way they want to act in this country, because you know that this is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and a very plural society. And you cannot instigate any kind of, violent means to achieve your goals. And from the very beginning, Blue Party is trying to achieve its goal not by the democratic process and participating, but by complaining and trying to instigate violence in this country. So this is not a right way. Ethiopia, it's only the 5th election we are making, and every election is better than its predecessor.
So you must be very disappointed then, because Ethiopia is almost universally criticised for the state of democracy, for the state of political participation in the country. So, and this criticism comes from the likes of Human Rights Watch, it comes from the European Union, it comes from the State Department.
No, we are not disappointed at all. We only say that they do not understand the real situation of this country. they are outsiders and they just want to see a democratic process of the United States in Ethiopia within 1 year, which is absolutely not possible.
Criticism has also come from the continent as well. I'm talking about the Mo Ibrahim Index of Governance, for instance, which criticizes Ethiopia for the political space.
No, I don't see that Mo Ibrahim is from the continent. I see it's working in the United States and UK. It's simply Mo Ibrahim, a person who is a Sudanese, is my friend. But the whole system, the whole process is geared towards the Western attitude and values.
What about the African Commission for Human Rights, based in Banjul, which has been highly critical? In 2012, there was a resolution being highly critical of Ethiopia, not only for the state of the political space and the lack of participatory politics, as they would see it, but also in terms of human rights.
That's also a misunderstanding. If I tell you, in Ethiopia, you see that there is a fast economic growth. And that economic growth has come only simply because we make our people to be part and parcel of all the engagements. It is our farmers who brought this economic development. It is our small and medium enterprise operators who brought this fast economic development. It's simply because Ethiopia and this government has made these people to directly participate in all these engagements. Democracy for us is not only an election which is conducted in every period of time. It is participating the people in all aspects of their life, including their development aspects. So I think participatory democracy in this country is something that you can learn from rather than criticize about.
But the fact is, many parties do feel disempowered. They feel that they are harassed. They've reported that many of their, as I say, the electoral board is actually used, they say, to disenfranchise many of their candidates.
Yes,
so
they
feel that there isn't a level playing field. So clearly, the government needs to do more.
I can agree with you on issues that we have to do more, because I say this is a fledgling democracy. And we say that this is a house in making. And democracy cannot be built within few years of time. That the thing is, we believe that we are on the right track in democratizing this country. And democracy should, you have to ask the people themselves rather than the parties only. I mean, it's only one side of the equation. Now, there is a ruling party, EPRDF, there are opposition party members. Why don't you ask the people? What do the people say? The ultimate judge of this process are the people on the grassroots. And I suggest that let our people judge us, not somebody from outside. After all, a democratic, credible, fair and free election should be credible in the eyes of our people, who is responsible for electing all of us. So the most important thing is you have to also see the equation. Your questions are all based on what the political parties have said, what somebody from outside has said. What do our people say?
Well, these are Ethiopians. Many of these people are Ethiopians. We understand.
But there are few franchised.
You say so let the Ethiopian people decide. Of course, 2010, the last election, 99.6% apparently voted for the ruling party. I mean, that does stretch belief, doesn't it?
No. I think if the people decides about it, who's going to change it? You have to say that these people has not decided. If you see at the end of 2010 election, our people has come out to the streets and told, even to the observers who have reported somehow in a different manner, say to them, please accept our votes, respect our votes. So it is the people who is ultimately the judge of this process. And I will take whatever, we are working in we have inter-party dialogue mechanisms in this country. And whenever there are problems from the ruling party, I think we can sort out those problems and resolve those issues. But ultimately, it's the people who should decide.
Can we move on now to the economy? Because, of course, this is something that the Ethiopian government is incredibly proud of, rightly so, because you've enjoyed immense growth over the past decade. The criticism would be, of course, that the wealth that's been accrued as a result of this great development over the past 10 years has not been spread widely enough?
First of all, this lacks, a diagnostic analysis. Where is the engine of growth in this country? The engine of growth in this country is from the farming community. It is the family farming. Out of the 70 million population in the rural areas, that only something like 15 million is below poverty line. But the rest are above poverty line. It was 15 years ago, 50% of our population was below poverty line. We are on the right track. We are moving forward.
If Ethiopia is so vibrant, why are so many young people leaving? And referring, of course, to the Ethiopians we've seen unfortunately caught up in the migrant crisis in Libya, trying to cross to Europe for jobs. Unfortunately,
I'm glad that Al Jazeera has worked a documentary on this. The Ethiopian list is not there.
Because they're undocumented. By definition, you can't place a number on the number of Ethiopians.
Look, the number of Ethiopians should be documented because you have documented all those countries involved. So why don't you ask your research over there? I am glad that Ethiopia was not in that mention. It's only other African countries. Migration will be there. You say that 20 million out of 94 million population is below poverty line. That's true. So what's miracle about it? Out of this 20 million, somebody might go because searching for good life. So the thing is, we have to address the poverty. We say that...
Are you prepared to accept that so many people, and I can't put a figure on it because I've not seen a figure anywhere, all the migration organizations have said, as a consequence of their lack of papers, that obviously by definition is how these people travel, that we can't be absolutely sure, scientifically sure about the numbers. But there are, and you've got to agree, there are Ethiopians who are dying in the Mediterranean. There are Ethiopians who are traveling in order to get a better life.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is something that the government needs to address, because this falls in, of course, to the accusation...
Who said that this government has completed fighting poverty? Who said that this government has...
So it's not job over?
It's not over. I said it's a house in the making. We are coming out of a deep poverty. This is a country which has a per capita income of only 640 million US dollars. So you can imagine that this is a country which has moved very fast in the last 12 years. But 12 years of engagement and fast development doesn't bring the poverty line to that level. We need another 10 years or 15 years to eradicate poverty from this country. Extreme poverty, not all poverty. I think if we need 15 years more to eradicate absolute poverty in this country, there is huge job to be done.
Can we go back now to the issue of democracy and the idea, perhaps, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but the idea that was put forward by your predecessor, unfortunately we are mentioning him rather a lot, and that is that effectively, and I paraphrase, that in order to achieve development, democracy needs to take a back seat, if you like, and that in order to achieve the kind of growth that you want to see by 2025, when you want to be a middle-income country, Ethiopians need to forego civil liberties and their political rights. Is that something that you subscribe to?
No, he has not subscribed this, and me too, I am not subscribing
What is the principle of the developmental state then?
Democratic developmental state. That's the difference. We are not only developmental state, we say democratic developmental state. You have to take it in a full, script. It says democratic developmental state. There are countries who have been developmental without democracy in the Western, prescription, but there are also countries who have gone through development through democratization. But for us, I mentioned to you earlier that in Ethiopia, democracy is not something you choose out of the best ways of development. For us, it's an existential issue, and we need to democratize this country.
The democracy is in process. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Why then is Ethiopia constantly deemed to be one of the most highly censored countries in the world? I think it's the fourth most censored country in the world, according to Human Rights Watch. Committee in Defense of Journalists, they are reporting so many concerns about the state of journalism in this country.
We are always been in contradiction with the Human Rights Watch report. We say this is a neoliberal prescription, since Ethiopia is not following the neoliberal paradigm and prescription they are giving to us. We are always criticized. So we have a huge difference between us and the Human Rights Watch. We cannot base our arguments on
But it's not just Human Rights Watch. I mentioned just one in particular.
Whoever
Article 19, again, the United Nations, human rights organizations, all of them.
Whoever criticizes us,
so everyone is wrong.
Beginning.
Everyone is wrong.
Not everyone is wrong. We say that this is a democracy in making. And they have to understand that this democracy has to continue on in the process of building. For that matter, democracy is building democratic culture and then institutions.
And how does freedom of speech then play into that? In the meantime, because as I say, there are a record number of journalists who have been imprisoned or intimidated.
No.
So that
these are not journalists. These are not journalists.
You use the anti-terrorism legislation.
Yes, you shouldn't see this as a disguise. You know, the moment you join the terrorist groups, you become a blogger. And if they become a blogger after joining terrorist groups, who's going to let them say that there is a mask?
So the Zone 9 bloggers, you've detained them under the anti-terrorism proclamation of 2009, which itself has been criticized widely. And again, I refer you to the African Commission.
None of those who criticized us has not given us any objective reality that they are not member of.
The African Commission suggested you repeal, amend the
That's wrong. The African Commission has no right to do so.
Do you not sign up? Are you not a signatory then to freedom?
No. Look,
the freedom
you have
of
to understand the whole picture. We have responded to the African Commission of Human Rights. That's not their mandate. They are mistaken to do so. That's not possible to do so. By the way, we have given them a right answer because they are going beyond. They are pushed from outside by some groups we know. That let's put this aside. But the whole thing is anyone who masks itself in the name of journalism, which is a very noble job and profession, working for the terrorist groups, we will
Is that what you really believe?
Yes, I believe there is evidence. There is evidence, clear evidence,
what is the
technical
evidence against the Zone 9 bloggers, for instance? They haven't been charged. They've been imprisoned for over a year.
They are in the process of the court.
Repeatedly denied bail. What is the evidence against them?
They are being in the court. This is a court process. It's taking time. You can ask the judges.
This is against all their human rights as well, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Everyone is.
It's
everyone
not. In
is.
the United States, those terrorists has taken many years. You have never criticized that thing. This is only 1 year. It's a terrorism charge.
I think we at Al Jazeera, we would criticize human rights abuses anywhere we see it.
It takes time. It takes time, and it should take time. And it's a court process, and it should continue to do so.
Of course, I mean, that assumes that the role of the judiciary is completely independent and impartial.
Yes.
And again, I refer you to the criticisms that are out there, and that is that the Ethiopian judiciary is an extension of government, of the ruling party, and doesn't. This is a real criticism that's been made.
This is an insult for an independent judiciary system of Ethiopia. It's not an extension of the government system. Of course, it's a branch of government, but it's not an extension of the executive branch.
There is separation between the judiciary and government and the executive branch.
Yes.
What will happen next to the Zone 9 bloggers? Because this is, as you know, is creating a huge amount of concern around the world.
It's up to the judiciary system to decide.
Why don't you consider the recommendation then that you amend or repeal completely the anti-terrorism proclamation? Why don't you do away with that?
No, we will not do it because look, this time, every country is revising its anti-terrorism law. Ours is below that. In every standard, we say that we have only copied the anti-terrorism law from the British law.
Which is a flawed law. David Cameron has been forced into amending it. It's been hugely criticised.
David Cameron
has the civil rights of Britain.
Has strengths in it.
Certain sections of it have had to be amended.
The French also has strengths in it. The Australians has strengths in it. Everyone this time.
What is the terrorism threat that Ethiopia faces?
Of course it is.
Where is it coming from?
It's coming from the terrorists, Al-Shabaab, from Gimbot 7, from the ONLF, all those terrorist groups, which are labeled by our parliament as terrorist groups.
Do you really believe then that these bloggers, the 6 bloggers and the 3 journalists, you really believe that they might have associations
Maybe
with...
I might be criticized by the judiciary system because in the process, but I can tell you. But this is in the process of the judiciary system, and I cannot officially say at this time what they have done and what they have to prove it, because otherwise I might influence the judiciary system if I give this information. But otherwise, I have a clear evidence, and my government has a clear evidence that they are connected with one of the terrorist groups. I will not tell you now.
When do you think they'll be charged, and when do you think this judicial process will be ended?
I think you have to ask the judges. It's not in my jurisdiction.
Can I ask you about one of the great centerpieces then of your development program, and that is the Renaissance Dam, which you're hoping will be fully operational quite soon, I understand. As I understand it, we are awaiting the final report of the technical committee, which you hope, of course, will be signed up to by the 3 parties, Sudan, Egypt, and of course yourself. My question to you is, if this report is not favourable in terms of the impact upon Egypt, will Ethiopia continue with its plan? Will it go ahead with its construction and operation of the dam if Egypt decides not to agree with it?
I think I cannot speculate now, simply because we have agreed that there will be a technical committee that is going to report. I feel that the most important thing is the mutual understanding and mutual respect we have already established between the 3 countries. That's the basis for all negotiations. You cannot say hard and fast this and that, because this is a societal developmental issue.
But clearly...
But the thing is, we said that Ethiopia is not there to significantly harm Egypt or Sudan.
But you've obviously taken into consideration the possibility that this final report is not going to give such a glowing prospect for Egypt, and you've obviously considered the possibility of the Egyptians not wanting to go along with the full operation.
I have never said this because I do not know. The study has not been started. How can I say
But you've
that?
already prepared a position for if that doesn't...
No, I didn't say this is the principle we have signed. I'm talking about the principle which bases our discussions and dialogue. That's what we have signed. So I'm talking about those principles. But whatever the result is, then we believe that we are inseparable. We are connected by the Nile. We either sink or swim together. So we have to choose to swim together rather than sink together.
This is your first election. This will be your first mandate from the people. What sort of mark do you hope to make on this country?
First of all, I think this is a parliamentary system. I am
But
being
the
elected
party
only.
chairman and the prime minister.
Of course, that's true. But it is the parliament who elects me. It's not the whole people. It's not a presidential system. So I think we have already designed for the next 5 years where to go and what to do.
So it's business as usual, is what you're saying. We're continuation with the policies.
The problem with your question is the global situation is changing from time to time. Even today is not the same as tomorrow. There cannot be business as usual in any developmental process.
Many Ethiopians have commented that despite having a new man in the top job, they're wondering whether, the fact that you come from a different ethnic group, you come from the south of the country, and they're wondering actually how much power you will wield, and they're suggesting that perhaps Prime Minister Hailemariam doesn't have the power to change anything. The power is not his.
I think, first of all, this comes with a misunderstanding of how our party operates and how the government works. If you think about individual powers, this country will move nowhere. Even during Prime Minister Melle's era and period, this country has been deciding collectively in the system. And I cannot decide myself without endorsing. I bring proposals to the cabinet members.
So what are your passions? What are your particular passions? I know that you've got a scientific background. You're a civil engineer by training. You've been a university lecturer. So what are Hailemariam's particular passions and the kinds of marks that he'd like to leave?
I want to see that this country has a servant leader. Whatever the people say, I'm serving my people. So I want to be a servant leader in this country. And that is my passion. I want to see these, people who are suffering from the poverty to be extricated from this poverty as quickly as possible. That's my passion. That's my dream. And day and night, I'm thinking about how to extricate these people from poverty. That's alpha and omega of my work.
Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
you.
the interview.
Thank you.